time. Ghana 2010 World Cup. Suárez breaks African hearts.
And it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more. And it's no, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank the greatest teams of all time. My name's Graham Dunn. Yes, it seems unbelievable, but Ghana 2010 World Cup, I do manage to smuggle an Oxford United reference into here. And joining me as ever is our data guru. It's Jamie Rooney.
Hey, Graham. I think we could have a couple of teams from the 1800s that haven't even really established themselves in the football world, and you could probably still find a way to get an Oxford United reference in, even at that point when Oxford United probably weren't even called Oxford United.
Exactly. Back in our Headington days. I don't even deliberately go out to do it, but, well, I mean, I do sort of do that, but some of them are accidental. Now, I do know, the reason I know I managed to smuggle a Oxford United reference into this podcast is the Ghana story is one we recorded a couple of months or so ago, or maybe 6 weeks or so ago, which was part of a double header that we did with Luton Town with Jamie Wilson, our Portsmouth-based guest artist. And we originally envisaged that as a bit of a double header, but we got a bit carried away on Luton, didn't we?
I think we all got carried away with the jig of joy in David Pleat, and we didn't realise how much time we could fill on the brilliant Luton Town from the 1980s. And yeah, I think if we would have done the double header, we would have probably put out a 2-hour edition. So we made this sensible decision to split them in rightly so, because they're two fantastic teams, and the Ghana story is just wonderful.
You know, here's the spoiler. Here is the Oxford United reference. I'm going to let you know that I do mention Sam Baldock being quite a long way from an England call-up, which seemed pretty unlikely at the time. It's even more unlikely now because in the 6 weeks or so since we recorded, he's actually now retired from football, so he definitely isn't getting an England call-up. You'll also hear us referencing Stuart Broad and his great protest about the Ashes run-out decisions at the time. Something, again, very much of its time. It probably feels like that might have aged a little bit since then. But, you know, that's all good.
We've kind of gone topical. We set out to make this evergreen, and now here we are. We've wandered into the dangerous territory of current affairs.
Definitely so. Now, a couple of small bits before we get into today's pod. A couple of small bits on a couple of recent ones that we did. We did Scotland 1978 World Cup squad. A really great story. Stefan joined us for that one. A great little fact that came up from I just saw on a Twitter feature. Goalies are different. Do check out those. There's quite a lot in there. But the amazing fact that Alan Rough was the only goalkeeper in the 1978 World Cup to not have gloves. So that seems extraordinary to me, but I suppose that sort of time gloves were still very much just in the coming into it, really, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the history of goalkeeping gloves, quite a fascinating subject. One maybe we can pick apart at a deeper level at another podcast when we're talking about teams with great goalkeepers. But yeah, you're right. I mean, goalkeeping gloves were a new innovation around about the 1970s. A couple of teams, goalkeepers were wearing them before that. But yeah, they really came into their own in the 1970s. So Alan Rough was just doing everything that he thought was right with not getting involved in these new fandangled inventions. So these things that are going to protect your hands from a stinging, heavy, wet, fat ball.
A cruel man would suggest that Alan Rough didn't get a hand near anything anyway. But I don't want to upset the Partick Thistle fans and Stefan in particular. So I take that back. I wouldn't say that. So the Scotland pod, which you can see, I do recommend. That's a really good one. I also recommend the Luton one that we did with Jamie from a few weeks ago, which is a really entertaining stroll down that David Pleat side. So last week we had the challenging issue of doing the excellent Genoa and the slightly harder one for me to do, which was the Swindon Town Cup winning team.
Yeah, we got some lovely feedback on the Instagram account from some Genoa football fans. But yeah, I'm really proud of you, Graham. I think last week you did really well. Swindon Town, you've put me through the grinder, covering a great Liverpool team of the 1980s and an okay-ish Manchester City team from the early 2010s. But yeah, last week you really had to do your stuff to, through gritted teeth, talk up the brilliance of the League Cup winning team of Swindon Town, Danny Williams' brilliant football team. And I thought you did a sterling job. I'm super proud of you, Graham. So you almost sold it to me like you're a Swindon Town fan.
Don't say that. I've matured. I've definitely matured. But, I think, we do need the roles to be reversed. So as a little heads up, we will be doing Porto in Jose Mourinho's Porto in next week's pod. And I'm sure there's one particular moment I might choose to dwell on, which might be difficult for you, Jamie.
Yes, all roads lead to Manchester on these things, it seems to be, and the red half of Manchester. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. A brilliant team, a brilliant manager at Porto and at Chelsea. Not such a brilliant manager at Manchester United, or you could argue his hands were tied a little bit. But yeah, I can't wait. Getting our teeth into Porto.
So that's coming up next week. This week, we're going back to 2010 in the World Cup and the brilliant Ghana. So we are going to the World Cup in 2010, and we're going to look at Ghana. Their second consecutive World Cup appearance, and one which ultimately becomes a classic Jedi battle of good and evil, essentially, in this one. But before we get to that element, I mean, Jamie, Ghana around that time, and they were a very useful side, weren't they?
Yes, they were. They'd already been to the World Cup finals in 2006, their first appearance in Germany, and they acquitted themselves really well. They came out the group, and then they lost in the round of 16 to the defending champions Brazil. And in 2010, they acquitted themselves a little bit better. In 2010, they had Serbian coach Milovan Rajovic, and he was quite an astute coach. He was quite tactical, and he started shaping this Ghana team, which was a talented bunch of players, and a lot of players that were quite familiar in the European leagues as well at that particular moment. Players that Jamie would be familiar with, Suleiman Tali and Prince Boateng were in that squad. Great Portsmouth legends, well, at least one of them was. And so he had shaped a pretty good Ghana team. And then you've got the backdrop of the World Cup being held in Africa for the very first time. And it's not something I like to do often or lightly, but some credit has to be given to Sepp Blatter, because he was desperate for a World Cup to be hosted in Africa for all of the favours that he had received down the years, allegedly. For all of the right reasons, he came up with a scheme where the World Cup would be rotated on a different continent. And Africa absolutely deserved to host the World Cup. It had been far too long. African teams had been in the World Cup since 1970. They were at the top table and they deserved to host the World Cup. And in 2010, we go to South Africa. We got this incredibly brilliant Ghana team, which it felt like the whole of Africa got behind, and probably some others.
I think in many ways they sort of became the host nation team. When you look at people, you always tend to get behind the home favourites, and South Africa, whilst it was great for the country to host the event, the team itself didn't really live up to hopes and aspirations, I guess. And I think they go out in the first round, don't they?
Yeah, they were the first host nation in a men's World Cup to exit the group stages, which was a shame because the country was absolutely enthralled with the hosting of the World Cup. They scored the very first opening goal of that World Cup when they drew 1-1 with Mexico. But after that, they failed to qualify out of their group.
And so I think Ghana do take on the mantle of kind of everyone's second favourite team, and ultimately, obviously, when the first favourite team goes out, favourite team, and I think there's an element of that which is, as you say, around the players being, fully recognisable. They were all playing in the European leagues, in some very familiar names, as Jamie mentioned. For you, South Coast, Jamie, we had a couple of players familiar to you from your Portsmouth days in that squad.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, when England go out, you look for any of your club players, or I used to in the old days when we had a team in the Premier League. And, Sully Montari, he only played a year for us, really. But of course, he scored that absolutely crucial penalty in the quarter-final of our FA Cup triumph away at Man United. A guy ice cool, because that wouldn't have been an easy one to stick away. And then you've got Prince Boateng as well, a much more exuberant character, shall we say. And the irony here is, if you just forgive me this one a little bit, but it was Prince Boateng who missed a penalty for us in the final against Chelsea a couple of years later. So yeah, it's still a great player for us, to be fair. He was very entertaining, and it's always good, I think, when you watch a World Cup and you've got players within your team, if you've sat and watched live, actually doing the business in a World Cup. So yeah, it was very entertaining for me to sit back and watch that. Although they'd moved on by that point.
They got on to better things, arguably.
Different path, shall we say. They didn't fancy the championship level football that we were playing and the financial crisis.
That Ghana side, so they're in a group with Serbia, with Australia and Germany. So it's, that's no easy path to it. How do they cope through that group, Jamie?
They win the first game. They beat Serbia 1-0. Asamoah Gyan scores a penalty kick, which becomes a feature at this particular World Cup for Ghana and Asamoah Gyan. They then draw with Australia, a very important draw with Australia. And again, it's a penalty kick from Gyan that gives them the leveller for 1-1. And they lose to Germany. But because of the result in the other game goes in their favour, they qualify with Germany as second in that particular group and go into the round of 16.
So when they play Germany, a game which is largely unmemorable, a 1-0 win for Germany. But that is memorable for another reason, isn't it, Jamie?
It's the first time, and I believe the only time, in a World Cup finals where two brothers have actually competed against one another. So you've got Kevin Prince Boateng, who Jamie has referenced. He was a late call-up for Ghana. So he hadn't played for Ghana. They hadn't played for the Ghanaian national team before this particular World Cup. And the best player at the time, Michael Essien, had been injured in the African Cup of Nations in January with a knee injury, a very serious knee injury that kept him out for the rest of the season, and he missed this particular World Cup. So Kevin Prince Boateng, who was born in Germany, decided to take up playing for his family team, Ghana, while his brother, Jerome, also born in Germany, played for the German national team. So you've got this encounter where the two are going head to head against each other, and 4 years later, they face each other again. So not only have they gone head to head together as siblings in one game in the World Cup finals, they've done it twice. And I don't think two siblings have ever faced off against each other in a game of such magnitude before.
Certainly at an international level, it is difficult to even think of the circumstances under which that might occur. George Baldock is playing for Greece now, and Sam Baldock isn't playing at all. Maybe that's one. Sam Baldock feels like a long way from an England call-up, I have to say. No, it is difficult to think of any reason why any of that kind of circumstance would exist. I suppose it says a lot for, I think, the way Ghana played, and my memory of that team is that they played with their heart on their sleeve, really. They really... my memory is all their games are fantastic to watch, but we're just looking through a series of 1-0 so far. But I think it sort of starts to spring to life with the second round game. Ghana play USA. And actually, that US team was quite entertaining as well. Any side with Clint Dempsey in it is automatically lifted to a new level of entertainment. I think he just brings something else to the party. That was a great game, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, it goes to add extra time. It's 1-1 at full time. And the Ghana team were, I mean, yeah, they played with their hearts on their sleeve because I think they were carrying the responsibility that they were fancied. It wasn't any surprise that Ghana had gone into the last 16 and were facing up against the United States for a possible chance to reach the World Cup quarterfinals, which would have been, at the time, the third African team ever to make it to a World Cup quarterfinals after Cameroon in 1990 and Senegal in 2002. They were organised. They had a plan. And I think this goes back to the coach who played them in a system where they had that kind of classic, it's like 4-2-3-1, but it would drop into a 1 because they'd push on. And Anthony Annan would be the kind of the deep line midfielder who would hold the things together. And then you had the explosive nature of Prince Bertang, who really came alive in this particular tournament. It was fantastic. And then you've got this talisman, this brilliant talisman, Asamo Yan up front, who is just a great goal scorer. I mean, he's responsible for the 3 goals that Ghana has scored right up until this particular point.
Well, I would say he's probably the best goal-scoring number 3 in the business.
Yeah, it's very peculiar to see a centre forward, a number 9, as we would call them, wearing number 3. But he's not the first player, I think, to have a strange shirt number for the position he holds on the pitch. I think down the years, there have been some odd ones. I'm sure you can think of a few.
There are a few. My favourite, and it's a great era to go down, is Edgar Davids at Barnet, which already is a kind of surreal thing to remember happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he was already retired. I'd forgotten that actually he'd had a largely unimpressive spell at Crystal Palace a couple of years before, having already sort of retired once, and then turns up as player manager at Barnet. And to his credit, Barnet are in all sorts of trouble at that stage. And it's worth saying that he would not only been out of the game for a while, Edgar Davids had also no managerial experience of any kind whatsoever. He does kind of whip up a frenzy there, does get them going a bit, and they do go down. They do get relegated at the end of that season. It's not quite enough to keep them up, but he makes a real fist of it, and that's sort of fine. But if the story had ended there, against all odds, he takes over in the stays with them for the conference, which really feels like that's not where he. That's when he decides he needs a different shirt number, and that's where he takes, of course, the obvious number 1.
I mean, you can see why he did it, can't you? You know, there's an ego there that needs to be satisfied and fed, and I quite like that. Actually, that's quite good. I'm normally very angry about stupid numbers on shirts. I've got an irrational dislike for people wearing the wrong shirts in the wrong positions, and it gets me very irritated. You know, I like to see the number 9 up top. I need to see the number 10 alongside or in the hole. You know, I need to see the right back wearing number 2. I don't even like goalkeepers wearing anything other than number 1. So, you know, it's I kind of block that out of my mind, weird numbers. So I've got nothing to add to the party other than my irrational anger over it, really.
Well, I think you're right to be angry about it. David said he thought this was it was designed to set a new trend whereby midfielders would wear the number 1. I'm not sure that happened. I mean, it's fair to say that things tailed off a little bit. He he missed the first few games through injury. When he came back, he picked up a yellow card. I think this bit might not be right, but I think it's 10 in 10 games. He was definitely sent off 3 times in 5 games. Also around this time, he also had a clause which meant that he didn't have to travel to away games if they were a very long way away. So, which maybe isn't setting the greatest. That spell ended relatively good, but always great to relive Edgar Davids with Barnet and the number 1 shirt.
Well, you can link your dislike for travelling far away with peculiar shirt numbers and link it to Dennis Bergkamp. So when Dennis Bergkamp left Arsenal, he left the number 10 shirt vacant. And that summer, Arsenal made the massive sign-in from their rivals and signed William Gallas. And when William Gallas came to Arsenal, he stated he wanted a shirt number to befit his importance as this incredibly expensive sign-in. And as a centre-back, and Jamie, this is going to really irritate you, he wore the number 10 shirt that had previously been worn by Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah, that doesn't sit well with me at all. Number 10. I mean, that's
it's definitely wrong.
Well, I don't want to swear on your podcast, so I'm going to just shut up at this point.
I think, Jamie, probably the greatest approach was Argentina. Now, they came up with more of a lesser sort of positional based system and more a sort of school classroom approach.
Yeah, they went in alphabetical order. So they distributed their squad numbers in alphabetical order. So Edgar Davids wasn't the first outfield player to wear the number 1 shirt that I know of. That belongs to the incredible, brilliant Osvaldo Ardiles, who also features in a Tottenham Hotspur FA Cup final song. And we probably should talk about World Cup songs as well on that note. But yeah, Ozzy Ardiles wore the number 1 shirt for Argentina based on alphabetical order.
I still don't like it. I see the logic. I don't like it.
I think
that one never took off. That one never took off.
The best one for me is Zamorano, the great Chilean forward, who had always worn the number 9 shirt. That was his number. He was very proud of that. He was a centre forward. He had every right. He was fully entitled to wear the number 9 shirt. And he went to Inter Milan, and Inter Milan at the time had this other number 9 player from called Ronaldo, referred to as the real Ronaldo in some circles, the Brazilian version. So clearly Zamorano wasn't going to take the number 9 shirt. So he took the number 18 shirt, which sounds okay for a forward, but insisted on having a plus symbol between the 1 and the 8 on his shirt. So any mathematician in the ground could see that Zamorano wasn't actually 18. He was 1 plus 8, which is number 9.
It's too good. It's too good. So, Asamoah Gyan, I used to know how to pronounce that surname. I have forgotten how I used to pronounce it. But Asamoah Gyan, was there a reason he wore the number 3?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it relates to his brother. There's some kind of association, but I don't know the specifics. But I know it's a number he's worn at multiple football teams that he's gone to, where he's been able to take the number 3 shirt.
He was already the kind of star of the show, that Ghana side. But it goes to a new level in the game, and this is really the game that this side becomes best known for, which is the quarterfinal against Uruguay. It becomes this battle between good and evil. I love Uruguay personally. I really like them, and I think they like to portray themselves as the kind of the villains of the piece in all ways, which does sort of draw you into it even more. So it's set up as a fantastic battle. As a bit of research for the pod, I watched the game, but I also went back through the Guardian's minute by minute coverage of it, which is quite so. And when you're reading it, you're scrolling it from the end, so you can see what's happened, and you got it was an unbelievable game, all this sorts of stuff. And then you get to like the first half hour, it's kind of really dull, nothing happened, and they're talking about pastries. I think that it's kind of totally off the game. So there's no sign of what's to come, but it's 0-0. There's not really a shot in anger, I don't think, in that. But I think Uruguay are the better side. Ghana take the lead, don't they? And it's a spectacular long-range shot, I think, isn't it?
They take the lead on the stroke at half-time, and it's our man again, Suleiman Tari, who I think, I don't know if you realise, Graham, but I think we've developed a bit of a personal loving for Suleiman Tari, because this is now the 3rd football team we featured on our short time making these podcasts, where Suleiman Tari has been a key figure. He is in this Ghana team, and he's a massive player. He's in the Inter Milan team. And, of course, with Jamie, he's in that brilliant Portsmouth team.
Jamie, did you ever see Montari hit one like that? Although I'm not sure it's the greatest goalkeeping I've ever seen.
No, no, no. In fairness, the keeper gives him a bit of a favour there, doesn't he? But no, Montari was he was as I didn't play for us for very long, but was hugely important for what we've already mentioned. He did have that, as they say, in his locker. So he could hit a long range shot, and he would take it on. And what surprises me about watching that game against Uruguay is here's a guy who's known for hitting the ball from 40, 45 yards out at goal, and they back off him. And they give him a load of room to do it. Yeah, and the keeper doesn't cover himself in glory there, does he? But they haven't done their homework on Montari.
So Ghana go in at the break 1-0 up, and second half Uruguay starts to come back, but they do get their equaliser. They get their equaliser through a free kick. And again, it's sort of great reminding yourself of this moment because it's from a free kick, and of course, the 2010 World Cup in South Africa was also the World Cup of where the ball was probably more famous than any other. What was the ball, Jamie?
Is it the Jubilani? Was it called that?
Jubilani.
Yeah,
and
it moved a bit.
And in particular on free kicks.
Yeah, as demonstrated by Diego Forlan, who I think is on the edge of his own penalty box when he strikes this one, and it seems to move and swerve quite seriously. He was a good. He must be a good 30 yards out in old money when he strikes it from an angle, and it does move a bit. But yeah, Kingston.
Well, the keeper goes completely down a completely different line, doesn't he? He's definitely flummoxed by it, and I think in that tournament it was a bit of a nightmare for keepers. Full stop, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Frank Lampard as well on one occasion.
Yes. So it gets to Uruguay equalise. It's 1-1. It goes through. The game then heads to extra time, and actually, it's a good extra time. Extra time's kind of split between those which are, painstakingly dull. This was, you could sort of see. I mean, the Ghana side was already carrying quite a few injuries going into that game, from memory, and they were sort of a little bit down to the bare bones. But then the game is getting towards its moment, and it springs to life in, literally the last minute of the game when kind of a great opportunity, which the shot is initially saved brilliantly by Luis Suárez, before then being saved even more spectacularly by Luis Suárez when he handles the ball and is sent off. And I think what's great about that is, I mean, obviously he knows exactly what he's doing, but it's the momentary reaction. He has this momentary, who, me? kind of look, which is very impressive, isn't it?
He does, doesn't he? I'm going to jump in here, Graham, and just say, he's because he saves it with his feet. I think the first one, doesn't he? He saves it legitimately, and then he basically does a full-on save. And again, he really does the "who me" bit, doesn't he? He almost says it in Uruguay or whatever. It's sort of and shrugs himself. I mean, he's a divisive player, isn't he, Suárez? He's got an unbelievable career. He scored over 500 goals, played for Ajax, Liverpool, Barcelona. He's won pretty much everything you can win as a footballer. And yet he's got this crazy side to him. Because it's not the first time, is it? He's been known for some dirty handball stuff. He did it in a slightly less well-known game. I think he was playing for Liverpool in a cup game somewhere, wasn't he? Mansfield or something. And he handballs the winner there or something, doesn't he? And gets a bit of stick there. And he's also known for munching on footballers as well, isn't he? Which he's only done 3 times. So,
cut the man some slack.
I just find him, he's obviously a brilliant player. He's one of those, I was trying to think who he he's kind of like he's that player you always hate when they come and play against you. And yet if he's on your team, you absolutely love him. Like a Dickoff or or maybe that's unfair to Dickoff because he was just a kind of a pest of a player. It's sort of like it's more premeditated. It's more Joey Barton, isn't it, about him? He's got that kind of, I don't know.
I like the comparison between Paul Dickoff and Luis Suárez. I think Paul Dickoff would take that.
Impressive.
I think he would actually.
You're absolutely right. It is fascinating, and actually we'll sort of come on to it because there is an interesting point about Suárez at that point, because it's sort of our first time of seeing what this villain is going to become. But of course, there was a time when this horrendous act of sort of deliberate handball, very clearly deliberate, it's more routine. And of course, before the professional foul rule came in, it wasn't punishable by a red card. So there's a great clip, a chap called Ali Robertson playing for West Brom against Man United in 1976. I think, was that the year United went down, or?
There it is before, I went down before that, but it's a good question. It was around about that time.
And Ali Robertson is, West Brom are 2 up at this stage. This is slightly unlikely, though it is. And the shot comes in, and keeper speed, and Ali Robertson's on the line, just gently tips it over the top. He's sort of fine with that, slightly embarrassed, gets his yellow card. Keeper saves the penalty. West Brom win 4-0. It just shouldn't happen. And of course, it wasn't sort of punishable. There's another great one, which is Cesar Martins. He doesn't get away with it. It's in a game for Flamengo v Palmeiras in 2016. And both of these we'll put links in on the social because they are so brilliant. He doesn't get away with it, but it is literally the best player save you've ever seen. He goes and gives it the full arching acrobatic dive, tipping over the top. He got a heavy ban from that, and I don't think he played for them again afterwards. But
what a way to go!
Jamie Suárez, weirdly, was, whilst he came to be known for this slightly pantomime villain behaviour, he wasn't really on the psyche of the average football fan at this stage, I don't think.
No, this is 2010. He's playing for Ajax. There's a massive buzz about him because he's absolutely set the Dutch league alight with his goals and his incredible tenacity and brilliance. So there is a buzz. There is a feeling. Those who would have had the pleasure to see him would have known there's some player here. But there is a bit of the devil about him. And, Jamie's right. He went on to do a number of different things, which, probably go against the spirit of the game somewhat. And this is the first. This incredible double save is the first of its type that we've seen from this particular character. And what's incredible is that he embraces it. He doesn't shy away from it. He embraces the opportunity. A brilliant piece of marketing from the Luis Suárez camp to really maximize his profile, because it gets tagged with that it's the hand of the devil in some quarters of the world. But then Luis Suárez back in Uruguay is then telling Uruguayan media that he's the new hand of God. He's replacing Maradona with himself, which is an incredible piece of self-promotion. But yeah, at this particular point, he's a relatively unknown in the grand scheme of things player.
And I think what's so impressive, obviously, Asamoah Gyan, who is already well-established penalty taker, he misses the penalty, and it's the reaction of Suárez, isn't it? That's you shouldn't really still have the camera on him. You see it on the football documentaries. We've been watching the Welcome to Wrexham one recently, and that's really, you really can tell in that, and you see this in other football documentaries where players are sent off, they have to go and sit in the tunnel, back in the dressing room on their own.
Yeah,
just reliving the nightmare of what they've done. There's none of that for Suárez, is there?
No, and I think that really irritates me. A purist like myself, he likes to play the game in the right way. And you've got him, he's not sat in the dressing room thinking about what he's done, is he? It's the huge lack of humility. I mean, he is celebrating like he has scored the winner down there, isn't he? And it's kind of shocking to watch, really.
So, and that's literally it. I think that's literally the last kick of the game. I'm not even sure this time to kick off.
It's literally the last kick of the game. So the penalty incident happens, and there's a character in this that gets forgotten about, and it's a youngster at the time, 21-year-old Dominic Adea, who has just gone into the Ghanaian squad for this World Cup. He's only made a very small number of performances for the senior team, and he was a superstar at the Under-20 World Cup for Ghana when they won the tournament in 2009, the year before. And it's Dominic Adea who wins the first free kick that sets up this whole incredible piece that's just about to unfold. And he wins the free kick in the 120th minute of the game. So we're at the dying embers of extra time. This is the last opportunity. So the free kick is pumped in, and then we get the ricochet, and we get the first Luis Suárez save with his foot, the legitimate one. And as the ball comes up, it's Dominic Adea again, the 21-year-old, who headers towards goal, and it's clearly going in. The only way that this is not going to go in is the way that it happened, where Luis Suárez makes a fantastic double-handed dive-in save. And as you said, Graham, he then says to the referee, "What, me? I've done nothing," which is quite incredible. Yeah, then Asamoah Gyan, who's already scored penalties in this World Cup, he is the senior player, steps up, and the unbelievable happened. He hits it, strikes it right down the middle of the goal. It hits the crossbar. It flies up a good 30 yards above the crossbar, and the referee blows the final whistle. And when we're going into penalty kicks again, I have to confess, I never saw the Luis Suárez reaction that you referred to. I only saw this sometime afterwards. And the reason I didn't see it, because I was actually in the ground when all of this was taking place. I was at this game and I was behind that goal. So I haven't seen Luis Suárez. And also, this is really shameful to admit this, I mean, the stadium was literally a buzz with the vuvuzelas. And it was quite easily 95%, I would say, guesstimate, back in Ghana. So there's a small section of Uruguay fans. And I was one of the Uruguayan fans, I'm afraid. I had fallen in love. And I feel ashamed to say this now, but at the time I had fallen in love with this Uruguayan team. I loved what Oscar Tabarez, the coach, had done. I absolutely fell in love with some of the players. One of the players I was fortunate to see at United, the wonderful Edison Cavani, who's off the pitch when he gets the penalty kicks. Diego Forlan, I absolutely loved. And then you've got Diego Lugano at the back. And then one of my favourite players of all time, if you guys have seen this guy, Maxi Pereira, spent a lot of time at Porto, and I saw Porto as well. And he's fantastic. He was this kind of fullback, wing back, and he had 3 lungs. I swear he had 3 lungs because he can get up and down. So I guess what I'm doing is confession time right now. But yeah, I was one of the few in the stadium at the time that really did want Uruguay to win. And I hadn't got caught up in the whole emotion. And now when I reflect back on that, I feel quite ashamed, but I'm just being honest about how I probably felt. Well, there's no probably about it. It's how I felt at the time.
This is, I'm impressed with the therapy session that we're having here. We're making good work here, Jamie.
Appreciate it.
You know, and actually, in your defence, I can totally understand how you would be, lured in by getting to see Cavani score goals at Old Trafford, getting to see Diego Forlan not score goals at Old Trafford.
It's a cheap but brilliant joke.
Yeah. Now, whilst you were delighting in this misfortune, and the rest of us were wiping tears with this tragedy, sort of almost Greek tragedy style thing that's playing out here. There then comes, I think, one of the most courageous, and I know it's kind of only a game of football, so there are different levels of courage needed in bits and pieces. But, the balls of the man, Asamoah Gyan comes, his job is to take the first penalty. He's the captain, he has to set the tone. He's just the last kick of the previous game. I think Uruguay take the first penalty, so it's not literally the next kick, but there's one kick in between. And he goes again, and you think, how on earth do you settle yourself to be able to take that penalty? I think it takes an unbelievable amount of character to recover from having. Nobody would have. You could have absolutely forgiven him if he just hidden away. I can't take one after that. It would be absolutely legitimate. But there he goes. He steps up again, scores. Of course, just unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yes. I have to say, this game, seeing it live, is probably one of the most incredible games I've seen live. But what you just described there, I'm not understating this. I mean this sincerely. Watching Asamoah Gyan step up to take the second penalty of the kicker, and Diego Forlan has scored the first one. He's put Uruguay 1 up, and watching him do that walk, I can't imagine what was going through his mind. And I'm not understating this. I think it's one of the most courageous things I've ever seen live on a football pitch, because this guy's just had the whole, not just a nation, but a continent of dreams. Beyond that, he's going to take an African team to the World Cup semi-finals for the first time. And we've just experienced that with Morocco, which is fantastic. But this would have been Ghana, and this would have been super special in South Africa. The courage of the man, and not only to step up and take it, but the penalty he takes is an absolute worldie. It's, as the youngsters call it, it's top bins. It really is.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And at that moment when he scores, I think you think, oh, this is still happening. This is going to happen. It breaks down. Ghana missed their third, and despite your man, your player misses the fourth for Uruguay.
Dominic Adedea, bless him. You know, I mean, his mark on the last moments of this football match is incredible for such a young guy.
So Ghana go out at this tournament, and that obviously remains then their greatest World Cup achievement. Does that team, I mean, other than the fact that they continue to seemingly have more, they have Andre Ayew playing for them at this point. Jordan Ayew, I assume, still playing. I think there must be one going to play there for Ghana forever, but more. But that team gradually has slipped away a little bit from that. I suppose it's the Ghanaian golden generation. I've forgotten about Michael Essien as well, partly because he was injured in that, and obviously he was an amazing player as well.
Just before that, just to go back to the reference with Andre and Jordan Ayew. So Jordan Ayew didn't go to this World Cup, but another of the Ayew family, Ibrahim, did go. So you had two brothers in the team, both children to the incredible Adele Pele, who was also known as the African Maradona. So he's not only Pele, he's Maradona, a fantastic footballer through the 80s and 90s, and one of that incredible famous club, you know, like George Best, Alfredo Di Stefano, George Weah, Matt Letizia, never to have played at a World Cup finals.
Matt Letizia, yes. No, you're right. Or Dave Watson, as I
we learned
from earlier in the pod.
But you're right, they don't get anywhere near, they haven't got anywhere near what they achieved in 2010 in World Cup finals. They qualified for Brazil in 2014. It was a disaster. They managed to score in every game, but they lost 2, they drew 1. They then failed to qualify for 2018. They then famously went to the 2022 World Cup, where they didn't qualify from the group, but some may feel they had a bit of a bittersweet moment with Uruguay in the final game where they lost, but Uruguay failed to get qualification into the round of 16. And I think Ghana may have taken a little bit of solace from that.
Yeah, it's not quite the level of justice, you know, most people in the room here would have wanted to see. But as you say, everything was set up for that game, and Ghana weren't able to beat Uruguay, but they did ensure that Uruguay didn't do enough to get through that round. And of course, Suárez was still playing for Uruguay then, even, you know, for 12 years on. So
he was, and he obviously, you can imagine there was a lot of media interest in Luis Suárez going into this game, and he was asked in a press conference, is he ready to apologise for what he did? And it probably doesn't surprise you that he defended his actions. Why do I need to apologise? I didn't miss the penalty kick. Their player missed the penalty kick. I handled the ball. I got sent off. They missed the penalty kick. So my question back to you, as he's saying, as I'm paraphrasing, was, what do I need to apologise for? Which kind of opens the question. This would be, I'd love to get Jamie's views on this, because I can see where it's going. Was Luis Suárez cheating when he handled the ball, or was he just playing within the boundaries of the game, albeit not the spirit of the game.
No, it's a cheat. He's a cheat. I mean, there's part of me that almost respects him double downing on that. But no, I've always hated him. I mean, I'm not going to be here and sit on the fence for you. I'll be that man. I'll come out and say it. No, I mean,
you're very much the Stuart Broad of the piece. So you're.
Next time you're doing a
like
podcast about England and Australia Ashes, I'll join that one as well because I've got some thoughts on that. But yeah, right now, I mean, being slightly more sensible, I think Suárez is just. Well, I hope he's got some kind of counselling because there's obviously something strange going on in his head, isn't there? Because what was it? I mean, I loved it after he munched his first player in 2010, I think it was, when he was playing for Ajax against PSV, and he was called the Cannibal of Ajax. And then he took a munch out of Ivanovic, didn't he, in 2013? So he likes to. And then it's Chiellini, wasn't it, in the 2014 World Cup? He takes a bite out of as well. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just a really odd. But taking that aside, an amazing footballer. For the guy to score as many goals as he did and win as many trophies. I just end up thinking, how good could he have been if he'd have played the game in the right spirit? He could have been a marketing dream there, couldn't he? But maybe he needed that. I was going to say devil, but he the entirety of hell on his shoulder to. I mean, he did. He bent every rule possible, didn't he, to win games? He'd cheat, he'd dive, he'd bite, he'd handball. It's not the way I played my Sunday League career, Graham. Let's put it that way.
And that it's a Sunday League career. That tells you everything. The difference between you and Luis Suárez. People used to say, he had to, he's one of those players who had to play on the edge. He had to kind of, and there is playing on the edge, and there is being hot-headed. But I think particularly after the second bite, there would have been. I really shouldn't bite people. I mean, and that's quite easy to avoid. I can understand how generally you can see there are some people who just can't, they can't avoid putting that tackle in or that level of enthusiasm or just the red mist coming. But it just seems such a strange reaction. But there you go. Jamie, that you're there with the Uruguay shirt on, you were happily heading off to Montevideo, whatever it is. You're a fan of Suárez.
I have a lot of the shared feelings that Jamie has on Luis Suárez. I kind of out of this game, I don't think his actions were definitely in the spirit of the game. I don't really regard it as cheating, but I always remind myself that football is a global game, and what we're accustomed to in England as a cultural type of football isn't always the case elsewhere in the world. And I've learned that people play the game in different ways. And Luis Suárez is definitely grown up in a culture where people play football in different ways to how we want and like to play it in England. Whether that makes him wrong or right, I don't know. But like Jamie, I don't have strong fondness for Luis Suárez. I think the biting incidents are absolutely abhorrent. As a Manchester United fan, I can't forget the Everest scenario and how that was handled, which was really disgraceful in my opinion, but that's in the past. But yeah, I mean, I think I came away from the Soccer City Stadium feeling a bit bittersweet, really, because whilst I went in loving this Uruguay team, I kind of came away, like all brilliant English football fans, feeling bad that the underdog hadn't won and therefore wanting the underdog now to win. So yeah, I was conflicted coming out of it, but Luis Suárez definitely wouldn't be on my all-time favourite player list, even if I was compiling a top 10,000.
I have to say I love him actually. I think he's fantastic. And what I like is if you are, because actually I think even the handball moment itself isn't it's not so. It is cheating, but it's an offence, and he's sent off for it, and everything is rightly done. What he does is he carries it on. It is the smirk, it's the dance. That's the bit that lifts it to a new level. And I think if you are going to, you then compare it with, what's the best that we can do? It's Stephen Taylor for Newcastle, isn't it? It's Stephen Taylor handballing it and claiming that he's been hit in the ribs and carrying off for about, the referee has no interest in it. And that's gone, that's done. It's, it can't be done.
You know what? The association with that Stephen Taylor is very close to Luis Suarez, because if you think back to the Chiellini bite, the pictures of Suarez holding his mouth, his teeth, as if to suggest to the referee, he's injured my teeth, he's injured my teeth, he's caused the offence. He's not drawing attention away from the fact that his teeth have been involved in the incident, but it feels like he's the one that's been aggrieved in that incident itself.
So, Suarez apart, we should start to think about ranking this Ghana side. The popular choice for the World Cup 2010, but was this a great side? As a reminder, we have 5 categories of greatness, from all-time greats to the top, true greats, touch of greatness, edge of greatness, and at the bottom, blink of greats. And we maybe have, if none of those fit the right category, we have not great, but without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. Jamie, where do you put this Ghana side?
So I think in the context of Ghana, this is probably their greatest ever team. And just to kind of back that up, 10 of their player most appearances for the Ghana national team, when you took their top 10, 8 of these were actually in that squad. They were participating in that particular 2010 squad. So you've got a collection of great players at that particular moment, with a coach a classic kind of one of these European coaches that comes along, just manages for a World Cup or two, then goes off somewhere else, but manages to get the best out of the players. And it's a brilliant journey, and they come within a crossbar's width of making history. And who knows, they missed out on going into the semi-final, where they could have had a good fight with the Netherlands. And it literally probably would have been a fight with the Netherlands at that moment, because that's how the Netherlands like to play football. They certainly weren't the beautiful orange that we're used to. But they didn't get that. But I think this has got to be edge of greatness, really. I mean, it could be a bit of blinkered greats, but I reckon Ghana are on the edge of greatness.
Jamie, South Coast, where are you going on this one?
Yeah, so I'm going to go edge of greatness as well, Jamie. They didn't achieve anything, did they? If we're being harsh about it, but I've got some. I saw a couple of their star players play in front of me for a season or two, so I've got some personal affection there. And they gave us one of the games of any World Cup that it will be talked about for all kinds of reasons for many years to come. So, yeah, a shame they didn't make it. And if Montari had been able to stay on the pitch and stick a penalty away in that penalty shootout, he'd been subbed off at the time, things might have been different. So, yeah, edge of greatness for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to, I think there is on the one hand, there's a case of them being blinkered greats, really, in that we love them, but, they hadn't achieved. Although quarterfinal of the World Cup is, given where African football still was then, or the journey it's been on, it's certainly within Ghana's football history and African football history, it's still quite impressive. I think blink of greats would be a bit harsh, and just for some of the legendary moments alone. But edge of greatness sums it up, doesn't it? Because edge of greatness is where they were on the edge of achieving something, and unfortunately that edge was the crossbar and the ballooning ball over one kick away. So Ghana, World Cup 2010, edge of greatness. So no time machine on this one, because firstly, it's pretty obvious which moment you'd go back for. And secondly, one of us was actually there already. Unless, Jamie, you want to go back and change history, like maybe supporting the right team in that one?
Possibly, but I think I'd probably get a refund on the free vuvuzelas that I bought instead, to be honest.
I'm sure you're there on watching Super Sunday on Sky you've got the vuvuzelas going most weeks, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't leave the home without it.
Excellent. So, thank you, Jamie, South Coast. Jamie, I was about to give you another name. South Coast Jamie, thank you for your time this week.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you both.
And Jamie, thank you to you also. That's all we have time for this week. As a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast, you can like the podcast, you can review the podcast, you can tell all your friends about the podcast, and of course, you can go back and listen to all our previous pods from the last season, and we will keep coming at you over the coming weeks. You can find us on the social at By Far the Greatest FC, and myself at Said and Dunn, and Jamie at Couch Pundito on X, I think we call it now, or maybe Twitter. But that's all for this week, and we'll speak again soon.